More and more Japanese are choosing to live alone. No marriage, no children. But still, people actually want to get married and have a child. What's stopping them? But for example, in the year 2000, about 1.19 billion babies were born. But in 2024, the number fell below 700,000. But this isn't just statistics. Behind each missing number is a real person who chooses to stay single to live alone. Behind this rapid decline lies not only economic issues, but also cultural factors unique to Japan. In Japan, the idea that marriage equals children is still deeply rooted. For comparison, the share of children born outside of marriage is 62% in France and 40% in the US. But in Japan, guess what? It's only 2%. Well, by the way, talking about my personal experience, I have yet to meet anyone in Japan who is unmarried but has children. Well, this makes sense, absolutely, when you consider the 2% figure. Anyway, this means that when fewer people marry, the number of children automatically falls. If we look at the long-term trend from 1947 to 2024, marriages have dropped by more than 150,000 in just the past decade. Even though there was a slight recovery last year, the overall decline is clear. The end of baby boom in the 1960s and Japan's shrinking population are both accelerating this trend. So why are Japanese people avoiding marriage? There are two main reasons. First, money. Maybe you can expect that. Well, surveys show that 80% of young Japanese still want to get married someday. But the reality is, many simply can't afford it. So they choose to live alone. Well, not because they want to be lonely, but because loneliness feels safer than financial ruin. Right, so take this example. The average take-home pay for people in their late 20s is about $1,200 to $1,400 a month. But in Tokyo, rent alone can cost about $700. Add utilities, food and transport, and almost the entire paycheck disappears. That leaves almost nothing for dating and wedding or saving for the future. And if you look at this chart, you will see that the lower the income, the higher rate of people staying unmarried. The second reason is changing values. In the past, marriage in Japan was seen as it's kind of like mandatory life event. But today, it's just one option among many. With greater respect for diversity and more women pursuing independent rights, careers, hobbies, and friendships, not marrying has become widely accepted. So yes, no marriage is a major factor in Japan's baby crisis, but here is a real puzzle. There are still around 500,000 marriages every year. If each couple had just 2 children, that would mean 1 million births annually. Yet the actual number is below 700,000 as I told you. So even marriage no longer guarantees children here in Japan. So how much has the number of children per couple actually declined? Well, Japan's total fertility rate has been failing since 1974 and hit a record low of 1.15 in 2024. For example, people now in their 90s often grew up with 4 siblings on average. Well, in fact, 3 of my 4 grandparents had 4 or more siblings. But today, about 20% of families have only 1 child, more than 50% have 2, and households with 3 or more children have sharply decreased. Well, looking back on my school days, as far as I remember, I only know 1 classmate who had 4 siblings. With later marriages and rising maternal ages, the fertility rate is expected to keep falling in Japan. But behind this decline are reasons that, once you hear them, may make you understand why more Japanese couples are choosing not to have children. One of the biggest barriers to raising children in Japan is balancing work and family life. But today, dual-income households outnumber single-income households by 3 to 1, and more than 70% of mothers with young children are working. As a result, many families rely on daycare from an early stage. But here in Japan, they face the issue of children stuck on waiting list. While in April 2024, there were still 2,567 children were nationwide unable to get a daycare spot. Well, this is much better than 10 years ago when there were over 22,000 children, but it remains a challenge. Well, it is vary from failing the strict application process to no facilities nearby to siblings being split into different schools. The result is delayed career returns, stalled career development, and lower household income in the long term. You might think, why not just take turns using parental leave instead of daycare? In theories, yes, but in reality, Japan's fathers rarely take such leave or actively share childcare duties. According to the OECD, Japanese fathers spend only about 40 minutes per day on housework and childcare, the lowest level among developed countries. These graphs show clearly how much of the burden falls on mothers. Many mothers desperately wish fathers would have more, and it's no wonder that childcare is one of the most common topics among moms. As a result, this leaves mothers feeling isolated and overwhelmed. Many women look at this reality and think, why would I choose marriage if it means being lonely anyway? But why are fathers in Japan so uninvolved? The answer lies in Japan's outdated work culture, still shaped by the values of the 1970s and 80s. For full-time employees, long hours are expected, with late-night overtime still common. The longer you stay in the office, the more it's seen as a proof of effort somehow. On paper, parental leave exists. In 2023, 84% of women took it, but only 30% of men did. And even then, many men took only a few days. With chronic staff shortages and a strong atmosphere of not burdening colleagues, fathers often feel unable to use the system. In fact, I've never heard of any of my male friends taking long parental leave. Old values like men should work outside, women should stay home, or it can't be helped, it's work, remain deeply ingrained in companies and employees alike. As a result, fathers don't share childcare, mothers carry most of the load, and the birth rate keeps falling. The burden on young couples doesn't end with children and work, and they also face the issue of caring for elderly parents. Japan aging rapidly, with average life expectancy at 81 for men and 87 for women, the highest in the world. Naturally, more elderly people require care, and more couples in their 30s and 40s are being forced into double care, caring for both children and parents at the same time. According to the Cabinet Office, about 60% of people in this situation are women, and the stress, financial, physical, and emotional, is immense. As this chart shows, worries range from the impact on children to their own health. Under such pressure, it's natural that many families conclude, we simply can't have more children. My grandmother is now beginning to need care, and she's becoming increasingly forgetful. So my mother sometimes complains about it. Thinking about whether she needs extra care, such as bathing and toilet, it's not hard to imagine how difficult it is to raise children in this situation. These pressures are especially severe in cities like Tokyo, where most couples live apart from their parents. One striking fact is that Tokyo's fertility rate is only 0.96 children per woman, while compared to the national average of 1.15. Well, at first, it may seem obvious, but why is it so low? The answer lies in urban life. But overcrowding, what makes even simple tasks like taking children to the doctor or traveling extremely difficult. While anyone who has seen Tokyo's packed train can imagine how tough it is to move around with children. Housing costs add even more pressure. Renting a 3-bedroom apartment in central Tokyo can easily exceed $1,400 a month. Small homes and high living costs drain household budgets. Some people suggest moving to the countryside, but rural areas have obviously fewer job opportunities and limited career prospects. Many parents also feel that urban areas offer better education and extracurricular options for their children. And it's true, I believe. Which raises another question. How much does it actually cost to raise a child in Japan? Raising a child in Japan is obviously expensive. Well, according to the Ministry of Education, raising one child from kindergarten through university costs about 8 million yen, which is 56,000 US dollars if they attend only public schools, and as much as 23 million yen, which is 161,000 US dollars, if they attend private schools. So why so high? Well, in addition to tuition, parents spend heavily on cram schools and extracurricular lessons. Many families, driven by the desire to give their children the best possible education, choose private schools and tutoring. The result is that more and more young people think one child is enough, or even we can't afford children at all. And so, more Japanese are choosing a lonely life. Not because they want to be alone, but because modern Japan has made it the only realistic choice they can afford. While being unmarried and childless may indeed seem lonely at the first glance. However, it's also true that there are things you can do because of that. For example, it's definitely easier to travel abroad if you are single. What do you think about the declining birth rate and rising rate of unmarried people in Japan? Is it the same in your country? Let me know in the comment box below. And if you want to understand more about modern Japanese society, please watch this video later. Right, so thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.